Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Pittsburgh Sportsline. Got a great show for you tonight. Big sports week. We'll probably talk about the Steelers, Penguins, and, well, the oncome of college basketball. But like every week, we're going to start out with our segment, What's on Your Mind? With us tonight, we've got Chip Hayner, Smoking Jim Frazier, and at the far end, Al Levine, the talking machine. Al, what's on your mind?
Well, you mentioned a key word. It's called Steelers. And what's on my mind is the schizophrenic Steeler fans. We have a bad game, and all of a sudden the Steelers, they're never going to win again. You got to get rid of Bruce Arians, Tomlin, LeBeau's too old. Then we win a game, we're going to the Super Bowl again. Well, I'm still holding steady that I think we'll have an 11-5 record. They played a nice game, but again, they get the lead, and then they start getting a little lax, and the other team comes on and starts to play a little better. And LeBeau worked his magic again, like we all predicted, with a rookie quarterback. And the players produced, and we even had Gay do a couple good things. And then it's like Timmons is listening to our show, and he hasn't done too much. And look what happened. He fell down and caught an interception. So I know that'll fire up my boy Smoking Jim here. But that's what's on my mind. The Steelers will make it to the playoffs, and it looks like they're going to have a nice record finishing out the season here with maybe a couple tough teams. One is San Francisco that is really surprising everybody, and their defense is playing a hell of a game each time. So we'll see what happens, and that's what's on my mind.
All right, Jim, what do you got this week?
Well, thanks, Magic Mike. I know this won't be very popular, but I got to be very honest. After listening to the Jerry Sandusky interview last night with Bob Costas, Jerry Sandusky said he's innocent. He didn't do what he's alleged to have done, and I believe him. And I think that in this country, you are innocent until proven guilty. And if Jerry Sandusky said that he's innocent, I believe him. And we'll wait for due process to take its course. Moving on, last week I gave you a stone cold lead pipe lock. I said Gateway High School would blow out previously undefeated Penn Trafford, and they did by 30 points. You deserve credit has to go to Russell Shell, the greatest running back football player Southwestern Pennsylvania history, state of Pennsylvania history, 9,000 career yards, 110 career touchdowns. That's almost 30 touchdowns a season. Broke Billy Sims, one of the greatest running backs of all time, national record of 39 consecutive 100-yard or more games. So he hasn't been held to under 100 yards since early in his freshman season. And so we got to give it up to Russell Shell. Hines Ward of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Is it time for the Steelers to cut Hines Ward? He's the low man on a totem pole as far as wide receivers go. He makes $4 million a year. Maybe if you cut him right now, he lands with another team. And I, for one, would love to see Hines Ward catch 1,000 passes in a Seattle Seahawks uniform. And finally, before the season, I predicted that the Pittsburgh Steelers would go 12-4 this season because they have the easiest schedule in the history of the National Football League for a team who was represented in the Super Bowl the previous year. I said that the Pittsburgh Steelers were winning because of Bill Cowher players, and right now the Steelers are in because of the chin.
Well, Chip, what do you got for us this week?
Well, I'd like to go back and visit a couple of the games, NFL games from this past weekend, and particularly watching the Lions play the Bears. A couple of years ago, the Lions were the laughingstock of the NFL. They'd lost 16 games, and they've tasted a little bit of success this year, and they don't seem to be able to handle it well. The behavior on the field is boorish at best. And, somebody needs to teach these gentlemen how to act like professionals and to be something that people can be proud of. And the one last thought I have is I'd just like to give a little shout out to my Cleveland Browns. No Nobody else I know can miss a 22-yard field goal with the game on the line, but the Cleveland Browns, and they hold true to form. And that's what's on my mind. Man.
All right. Well, I got to tell you, yesterday I was down in the Strip District, and I ran into a guy who had a T-shirt that said, "If you ain't a Steelers fan, you ain't, well, crap." So I asked him, does that mean if you are a Steelers fan, you are crap? And he didn't like that very much. And I started to think, why is it that the Steelers are the most popular team in the city? Because yesterday, the Pittsburgh Penguins, both their players and their coaching staff, went throughout the Hill District visiting homes and delivering turkeys and vegetables so that those people will have a Thanksgiving dinner. On cold, rainy days like tonight, the Penguins players, not the healthy scratch and not the just came up from Wilkes-Barre players, but their star players go out to the lines and deliver pizza and hot chocolate to the people standing in line. Wow. And during the playoffs, they'll put a huge big screen TV in the parking lot so people that couldn't get a ticket can still come down and see the game. To me, I think Mario Lemieux and the Pittsburgh Penguins organization are not only the class of the Pittsburgh sports scene, but the class of the entire world sports scene. And while we're talking about class, you got to understand the class is a two-sided coin. There's a high-class organization like the Penguins, but on the other side, there's a lot of low-class running around too. And today I'm thinking about the Occupy Wall Street movement. And you have to excuse me if I get a little bit out of the sports world, but the Occupy Wall Street movement has destroyed New York. It's destroyed Oregon. They're fighting with the police. They're raping girls. They're killing each other. And they're trashing up every place that they've gone to. Well, recently I've heard a rumor that the Occupy people are coming to Pittsburgh. They're going to occupy Pittsburgh. I'm going to give you a public service announcement, occupiers. My movement is called Liberate Pittsburgh. So you come down to Pittsburgh and you try to botch things up and especially try to block my path if I'm downtown. And well, let me tell you something. We're going to talk a little bit about college basketball tonight. And I'll tell you what, Louisville is not going to win the Big East. They're not going to win the national championship. But if we're downtown and you get in my way, I guarantee you Louisville is going to win that. I guarantee you that. Well, guys, what do you think?
Hey, Mike, I got to interrupt you on the Occupy Pittsburgh thing. You're late. I was down there about 3 weeks ago. I'm on Fifth Avenue. I just got my hair cut at a Zazu salon down there, not to drop any names. And I come out, I'm walking down Fifth Avenue, and I hear chanting. And I hear noise like there's a little bit of a ruckus. Well, they're coming across Fifth Avenue. There's about 20 of them, maybe 24. So I just stand there to see what they're talking about. They were just chanting and walking around. They didn't look like too tough of a group there, Mike, but they're already here, and it's a small presence. So I don't know what their story is and what they're going to try to do. And they did go to PNC Bank to try to stir things up, and the police come in and they sort of straightened them out and told them that, you know, whatever you're doing, just go by the rules, and they did. So it was sort of peaceful here. Now, if they're going to bring some of these other people, your Louisville struggle or Louisville bat will stop their struggle here. There's no doubt about it, because they're not very tough there, and there aren't that many of them.
What we had before was a march and a one-day rally.
No, they're
talking about setting up their tents, their
They have them down
tent
at Mellon
city and
Square.
stuff all over the place.
They're up, and
Mellon
Chip brings
Square.
up a great point. They're already here. BNY Mellon is already giving them free
I'm already here,
space
too.
in their park. They're already up there. And we'll take you up there after the show, because they've been
problem.
living there.
No problem.
They are there in tents.
They said as long as they don't get in my way, it's not a big deal. But when they try to block my path, I'll beat them to death.
Well, we may have some fun after the show, folks. Too bad you can't call in. Just give us an email at pittsburghsportsline@gmail.com.
Well, anyway, we've already given them too much presence on our show. We started to talk a little bit about the Steelers. Let me tell you, when you start to make sports predictions, a lot of things can happen. First off, when I predicted that the Steelers wouldn't win the division, I didn't know that the Baltimore Ravens. Well, I got to tell you, I think that Jim Harbaugh has decided that the Steelers have a plan to let them win the division, and he's not going to cooperate. So he's going to outsmart the Steelers and lose to the Seattle Seahawks, probably the worst team in the league. Also predicted that the Houston Texans would go to the Super Bowl before I knew that Matt Schaub was going to be injured and miss the rest of the year.
Wow.
They still have a great pair of running backs, and they have a great defense, so it's still a possibility, but Matt Schaub made all the difference, I believe. Right now, the AFC is a jumble. It could, well, not anybody. There are certain teams I don't think have a chance, of course, but a lot of teams have a possibility of advancing into the playoffs and going all the way. But like I said last week, again, doesn't matter who they send because all they are is a sacrificial lamb for any of 3 teams out in the NFC that will destroy anything that the AFC can send to them.
And I definitely agree with that. Houston was really playing with a lot of pride. They played a way that I believe that you win football games with a great defense and a powerful running game. And Matt Schaub was definitely an outstanding quarterback who was in that same class with Ben Roethlisberger, Eli Manning, and Phillip Rivers. And the big bust that I predicted, J.P. Lossman for Buffalo was a bum. But, now they're going with Matt Leinart, who's already proven to be a bust. He doesn't want to play. He'll give up 2 or 3 interceptions a game. Turnovers hurt football teams. But Tyler Pelko, the former great player from Pitt and West Allegheny, always been a Steeler fan. Now he's going to be the starting quarterback for the Kansas City Chiefs. And I'm sure he'll help the Steelers when they play them their next game.
Those are some nice observations, Jim. And I like some of your predictions. I agree with you. I wanted to touch on that Gateway prediction that you had a lock because we had some controversy on whether your locks were any good. And your lock come in very strong there.
Thank you, sir.
And when the predictions are working, it's a lot easier to smile. I understand that. But I'm not afraid to make predictions, and if they don't turn out, what are you going to do? I mean, look at Kansas City now. They were one of the top teams in one of the weakest divisions. And now, they have Tyler Palko there, and that's a tough thing. He's a great athlete, but as a quarterback, he has a long way to go. And with Matt Leinart, there goes their season there. That's a shame.
There's no doubt about that. I don't think anybody can win with Matt Leinart starting as a quarterback. I don't know how USC managed to accomplish anything with him as their quarterback either. But as a professional, he's been horrendous, and I think Houston's benefited from the fact that there is no Indianapolis Colts this year.
Right.
And to speak to the Indianapolis Colts, I really think that the MVP of the league this year should be a player that isn't even playing. I mean, Peyton Manning can mean that much to one team, and he hasn't played it down, and they haven't won a game since he's left.
Hey, on that note, isn't it almost criminal that the team would promote that Peyton's coming back and he never even had a chance? Look how he was going to Europe for stem cells. I mean, that's a problem because you gear up all your fans for a team that was so great, and now look what happens there. I have a problem with ownership on that.
And I give it up to Chip too. It's hard. I mean, I would not argue with Peyton Manning getting MVP when he didn't even play. But another guy that I would put up for MVP is Tim Tebow. Denver can't win without Tebow. He's not going to the Pro Bowl, but he's definitely a winner. But all you guys who's out here, Indianapolis, you want to suck for luck. Listen, Andrew, Chuck and Duck Luck is proven to me a long time ago. I think he's a very average quarterback. I think he'll be a below average NFL quarterback. So if you want to suck for luck, watch what you ask for because you just might get it.
Well, I don't know if Andrew Luck is the answer to any NFL team, but people badmouth Tebow a lot too, and he's helping Denver out. I guess like I say, I think that in the NFC, I think you have the superior football teams here. Green Bay obviously is the best team in the league. Best team in the league doesn't always win, but Green Bay is definitely the best team in the league this year. San Francisco 49ers have come out of nowhere. They're very impressive. The job that John Harbaugh is doing out there is Jim Harbaugh is doing out there is amazing. He's definitely actually Jim Frazier said a couple weeks ago that he would be the coach of the year. I have to agree with that. He has to be the coach of the year. Nobody's done a job like he's done. And the New Orleans Saints, again, I think are probably better than anything in the AFC. And Dallas is starting to come on pretty strong. I don't know if Tony Romo's a great quarterback or an anomaly or whatever, but every once in a while he has a pretty good game like he did this past week. I think the NFC is stacked this year.
Well, I think Tony Romo has got one unique feature as an NFL quarterback. He has this innate ability to shoot himself in the foot, and that's ultimately Dallas's downfall. But the thing that impressed me so much this past Sunday was the way the 49ers handled the Giants. And and I know the Giants did have a chance to stay in the game at the end, and and Eli threw that big pick, but I keep waiting for the 49ers bubble to burst, but they just keep playing solid football, strong defense. They find a way to win every week.
And I tell you what, a stat that nobody's talking about around the whole league, and this is something that you look at for anybody that don't think the San Francisco 49ers are for real, look at this stat. They have not given up a rushing touchdown all season long. That's all you need to know. And I think the Green Bay Packers are the class of the NFC, but don't count the San Francisco 49ers out. That defense is lights out. Patrick Willis is unbelievable linebacker.
And as Chip said, Tony Romo has a habit of shooting himself in the foot. The only other NFL player that I know that does that is Plaxico Burress.
And I have another one for you. How does the name Phillip Rivers sound to you with shooting himself in the foot?
Wow.
Multiple times with fumbles at the end, interceptions. I mean, I like him. He's a gutsy quarterback, but lately it's just been one mistake after another.
And let's give it up to our warrior, our quarterback, Big Ben Roethlisberger, who I've said all along is one of the top 5 quarterbacks who've ever played this game. He has a fractured thumb.
Imagine that. Let me tell you what.
No, we're going to hear drama queen.
I make
now.
movies on the side. My next film coming up is going to be called Fun. And Ben, you know what? I need a drama queen. Give me a call.
What did I tell you? That I called?
Oh my God, my thumb's broke. I bet it won't be broke in 2 weeks.
He said he could play right now
Of course
if he had to.
You know why? Because there's nothing wrong with him.
Well, then, did you hear his little comment on some humor? He took his one interview, and at the end of it, he said, "Why don't you guys go for Luck then as a quarterback? You could draft him." That was his little comment in one of his interviews. Yes,
Wow.
He was trying to have some humor to it, and it really didn't go over too well because it's like, you're the quarterback here. We're not trying to get rid of you. And he goes, "Well, you guys could go get Luck." And according to Jim, we don't want Luck.
It wouldn't be any worse. Well, tonight's a big night in college basketball because Mike Krzyzewski, if he wins tonight, will pass Bobby Knight for the most wins by a college basketball coach. Krzyzewski's a very good coach, right up there with John Wooden and Bobby Knight. Personally, if I had a kid that could play basketball, I would want Bobby Knight to be the coach. But Mike Krzyzewski, a lot of success. Hope him well tonight. They're playing Michigan State, who is a slow team and doesn't shoot very well. They played in the first game on the aircraft carrier against North Carolina and didn't fare very well against them. I don't think that they'll fare very well again tonight. So congratulations to Mike Krzyzewski. While I'm on Mike Krzyzewski, who is in the ACC, I'd like to talk a little bit about the Pitt basketball team going to the ACC. In football, the merger with the movement from Pitt and Syracuse to the ACC doesn't really mean that much. Neither Pitt nor Syracuse is a good football program. They're not going to be a good football program anytime soon. And to be honest, the ACC is not a very good football conference. They've got Florida State, they've got Miami. This year, Clemson's doing pretty good, but it's always a hit and miss kind of thing. On the other hand, basketball, Big East, I think, is right now the best basketball conference in the NCAA, and the ACC is probably second, possibly the SEC. But in the Big East, Pitt is a big basketball school. They're one of the class teams in the Big East. When they move to the ACC, they're going to be second runs behind North Carolina and Duke. Not necessarily that those are going to be better teams or better organizations, but those are the media darlings down there. When we start to talk about college basketball, the first thing that you have to know is one of the NCAA bylaws is that any preseason poll has to have some team from North Carolina ranked number one, either Duke or North Carolina, but you can't have a poll in the preseason while putting one of them number one. It's illegal. You get fined for that. So anyway, we have this coming up. Guys, what do you think about the basketball, college basketball this year? First, you got to talk about college basketball. There ain't going to be no NBA this year. The players decided they didn't want to take the offer that the owners made, and the owners aren't going to make another one. So they're pretty much done for right now. To be honest, I always like college basketball a little bit better anyway.
Well, let me ask you this first, Magic, before you go to Chip. What is your feelings on Pitt moving from the Big East into the ACC? Would you have made that move because of how strong the basketball is in the Big East?
I would not have made that move. Like you said, Pitt's not a football school anymore. Mm-hmm. There might have been a time when Pitt was a football school, but it's not anymore. Pitt's a basketball school, and that's where they're going to make their reputation. That's where they're going to draw people to come to their school. They're not going to get people to come because of the football team.
Good point.
They might get them because of the basketball team, and that's where they're going to make their money. When they're in the Big East with teams like Connecticut and with teams, Syracuse, when Syracuse was here, and the other teams in the Big East, Louisville, they're good basketball schools, and they were the class of that also. And you know what? They might not this year. They're going to be playing in the Big East, and probably not next year. They're supposed to be, but I think they'll probably get out of that. But you know what? They're going to miss playing in Madison Square Garden. Madison Square Garden is a great location to play. The Big East tournament every year is a big deal. I think that's going to hurt Pitt to not be there.
Well, I think where it's going to hurt them is in the recruiting because, Jamie Dixon had a very strong connections to the New York, the inner city programs there, and the ability to be able to say, hey, look, we can get you, national exposure in Madison Square Garden, which is, the mecca of arenas, But I mean, the Big East is a very strong basketball conference, but in college sports, as much as I hate to say this, football is the one that brings the most revenue into the universities, and as far as the Big East in football, it's laughable. And Pitt had to make the move to the ACC, which it's going to be a little bit of a disappointment not to see them play in the Big East because some of the Big East basketball, without any question, is the best there is in the nation. It's not too surprising that the national champion came out of the Big East last year, and it's the ACC isn't going to be too far of a step down, but it is going to be a step down from where they play.
And that's a good point, Chip. I never heard nobody say that, but you're right. Pitt is really dominant in the recruiting in New York, and when you can tell a recruit that he can play a lot of his games at home, Madison Square Garden, Syracuse, St. John's, Rutgers, and these kids want to be able to play in front of their family and friends, and you're right. They ain't going to be able to do that in Tobacco Road.
Well, I've been watching Pitt a lot of years here, and it is a disgrace that they're leaving the Big East. I think they should have just stayed. Football's in a turmoil right now the way it is. Coach Graham, in an interview, said that this is so I just happened to catch this interview, and he goes, we had a change. They asked him if he changed his offense, and we've talked about it on the show how many times. He goes, yes, I've changed the offense. We're going a little too fast, is what his quote was. And I watched the clock, and they're not playing quicker than 25, 30 seconds. So, I mean, his thought process had to change. So he did say he did change, but there were excuses. So I'll get off the Pitt football subject right now. And the basketball, they do have some nice ball players, and when they do go to the ACC, that is going to be a little step down for them when you have 8, 9 teams going to the NCAA tournament. I mean, imagine that. 9 teams out of your own conference. I mean, whether you don't like Jamie Dixon or how it happened or who their players are, that's still an accomplishment.
They've got 6 in in the preseason top 20.
Right.
The Big East does.
I know. That's why I said it's a disgrace.
Yeah.
Wow.
that's strong. And nobody's really played a game yet, and that just speaks to the strength of the competition there.
Well, I think that again, like you just said, the Big East has 4 teams in the top 10. Always, it's North Carolina or Duke number 1. This year, though, my pick way ahead of time for national champion is going to be University of Kentucky. I think they're going to have the Player of the Year with Jones. I think that he's going to be their leader, lead them through all this. And the only other team that I think, the team that I'd like to see them play, either in a national championship game or somewhere in the tournament, is Connecticut. I think that would be the game of the year, Connecticut against Kentucky. I think they're 2 great programs. I think that Calhoun is a great basketball coach. Calipari's not too bad either. But those are the 2 teams that I think have a chance to win everything.
Wow, so Connecticut may win it in the girls and guys basketball, huh?
Yeah, what an accomplishment.
But the thing that confuses me about the preseason, the rankings, and they say North Carolina's ranked number 1. Well, I think they should start the year off like Connecticut won the title. They're the defending champions, and the way I look at it is until they lose, they're still the defending champions. They're ranked number 4, but I mean, they start out with this clean slate. Why not rank them number 1 until they get knocked
Chip,
off?
that's one of those things that we all think about. Why do they do that? But again, like Mike said, that's in the bylaws. And then it does sell a lot of advertising, because look at the ads on TV. I watch that type of stuff, and you see that all the time. It's all about advertising, promoting their campuses, bringing money into their system, and that's why you have that. After 2 or 3 weeks of these weaker teams, they're all undefeated. Maybe even after 15, 17 games. Don't they play that type of routine every year?
It's usually the first 10. Everyone starts
Right,
out the
it
year
does stretch.
10-0, and then they go from there.
Well, Pitt got to watch out. They got to play the city game.
Yes, they do.
That brings up a great point. One of my dad had passed this year, and one of his favorite coaches is McConnell out in Chartiers Valley. And his son, he remembers watching little TJ when he was an undersized kid and everything else. And now he's at the height of 6'1". He was Rookie of the Year in the ACC. So, I mean, there's a team that could be an up-and-coming team, and they play some nice team ball. And just keep an eye out for Duquesne this year. Maybe they'll go back to their old glory days.
And nobody could shoot the 3 like McConnell in high school.
Another local team that could do pretty well and now and then makes the tournament is Robert Morris, and we are going to have Marty Galosi from Robert Morris on as a guest next week. Make sure you don't miss that. He'll give you a lot of insight on the basketball, football programs, and on the Frozen Four that they're bringing to Pittsburgh, the Final Four of the NCAA hockey tournament. Speaking of tournaments, the NCAA basketball, even though it may not be as big a moneymaker as the football is, it's definitely put together much better than football is.
No
it has a
question.
tournament to decide the national championship. And as Jim brought up last week, or I guess maybe actually it was Chip 2 weeks ago, a team like Butler can get all the way to the championship game
Yes.
and play for the championship. Whereas Butler could go undefeated and beat everybody 100-0. They're never playing for the football championship.
That's right.
So I mean that's a much better way to do things. I think. Again, we have University of Pittsburgh. I think that Jamie Dixon is a very good basketball coach, and in fact, probably a good thing about going to the ACC is he can probably get a better look at a school that he'll probably be coaching next. He's when he outlives Pitt, he'd probably move on to a team like Duke if Krzyzewski should ever step down, or North Carolina or something like that. That's a step up for him from Pitt. And like I said, I think he's a good coach with a good future ahead of him, and he will move on soon. Mike Krzyzewski, the job at Duke might be there longer than Joe Paterno was at Penn State.
Wow.
Because he's he's just in that same situation. He's a guy who's bigger than the organization, bigger than the school, and maybe bigger than the sport, especially if he wins tonight and breaks that record.
Well, his magic number is 903. Both him and Coach Knight have 902 wins. It was interesting to see the interview that they had. You have 2 guys with 1,804 wins in basketball sitting together. and it was unreal. They were reminiscing about their Army days when Coach Knight was the coach there, and he said Coach K wasn't a very good shot, but he was the point guard, and he ran the team very tightly and successfully. So, I mean, it was nice to hear some, history about him playing the sport, but 1,804 wins between two guys. That's unreal.
And that just goes to show how great Bobby Knight is as a leader and as a man. Coach K comes under his umbrella, and don't forget his best friend, Bill Parcells, comes under his umbrella as well.
And to speak to Mike's point, regarding the NCAA basketball tournament, I think that really epitomizes the, specialness of team sports, because, you get a team, you get 5 good ball players, and they can beat a team that has one NBA caliber star who's out there running and gunning, trying to, mug for commercials and stuff like that. And, it's the people that play well as a unit that perform well, and subsequently a team like Butler can make it to the championship. And, and one other point to speak to it about Jamie Dixon. And Jamie Dixon, I think he's an absolutely great basketball coach, and what he's done with the Pitt basketball program in the Big East is pretty amazing. But I just wonder when he's going to be able to coach his team into the tournament. He gets his team to the tournament every year, and then somewhere in the second to third round, there's always a stumbling block for him that seems to be their albatross. I'd like to see him be able to get his team into the Final Four, because I think that's the only thing really that's missing from his resume right now.
Let's not go overboard with Jamie Dixon. Jamie Dixon is a Sweet 16 coach. They got Sweet 16 banners everywhere. Pitt has only got to the Elite 8 one time, and that's because they had a City League superstar, DeJuan Blair, playing for him. He inherited a great team that was founded by Ben Howland. Ben Howland still has his prints all over this team. The assistant coaches, the recruiting up in New York, that was all started with Ben Howland. Jamie Dixon is what he is. He's a Sweet 16 coach and nothing more, and should be criticized for that.
Well, Jim, I think you handled that criticism, don't you?
And we'll still root for him to maybe get that Elite 8 this year. Maybe with some of these young players and another McDonald's All-American that they have on the team, maybe they can coax some extra points and get to that next round, Jim.
But I tell you who was a great coach, the late Maggie Dixon. His sister was a phenomenal coach. And, and he does do some things in her memory, so I got to give him respect for that.
Yeah, she was a good coach. Coached the Army team. Again, the tournament's coming up, so guys, well, it's not coming up, but it'll be coming soon. Who do you think? Who do you like this year?
It's too early for me to make a decision. I got to wait to see at least halfway what's going on, Mike. I got to do some studying on these teams.
Well, yeah, but that's another show.
Well, the one thing you can say, and you guys hit on it real good tonight, is that Pitt finally has a lot of scores this year. It should be a very exciting year for Pitt, because the one thing that they always lacked was, enough scores in big game situations. So they have that this year. I'm kind of boycotting Pitt for a few reasons. One, I don't like the Peterson Event Center. I think it looks like the warehouse. I thought I was in Walmart or Sam's Club a few times. Nothing like the Console Energy Center, which I love. But also, Pitt has 4 jerseys that they hang from the Raptors. Charles Smith is one of them, but one is Brandon Knight. Why is Brandon Knight's jersey one of 4 in Pitt history hanging from the Raptors? That's crazy to me.
Well, who do you have to choose from? There wasn't, how many good players were there before him that should be up there instead?
Well, Clive Vaughn, Blair. There's been a list of great players in the history of Pitt, and for Brandon Knight's jersey to be hanging there is just crazy.
Well, yeah, wouldn't rule out Juwan Blair's jersey yet, especially since he's probably back in town, because San Antonio is not playing anytime soon. So he's probably still around, might be at a few games. They may hang his jersey up there.
Since we're on that NBA thing, didn't we talk about that a couple weeks ago? You guys keep going to the NBA and tweaking that. Smoking Jim asked me a question on there. I said it was only a 40% chance I thought that they would end the whole season. But these $100 million ball players, they went crazy with these offers. That's what happened. It
Give
took
me
them out.
Jerome Lane's jersey. I guess you got to get your degree from Pitt before they'll hang your jersey.
You might have said there was a 40% chance, but if you re-roll the show, I told you outright they weren't playing this year.
Yeah, he did.
But, nobody seems to be outraged that there's the possibility of losing the NBA season. I know Pittsburgh has never been an NBA town, but, I mean, if they don't play this year, what are we going to miss? I mean, college basketball is much more entertaining to watch. You actually, can watch some good basketball being played instead of a tennis shoe commercial.
Well, I mean, you know what? It's true that there's not an NBA team here, so you might not, we might not miss it that much. But it wasn't so long ago that the NHL missed an entire season, and you know what? I think that missed season fixed the NHL. That's Every team now is competitive, whereas before there were certain teams that were going to win every year, be in the playoffs every year, a lot like baseball. Now with the salary cap the way it is, with the agreement that the NHL was able to work out, every team is able to be competitive, with the exception of the New York Islanders, which will never be competitive again. But that worked out well. I don't think that would be such a bad thing for the NBA to miss the season and break the union and don't let them come back. Don't come back until they set it the way it is that they're going to make it, so that every team can be competitive and the owners can make enough money and the players can make enough money. That's where they're arguing right now, is the players want 60% of the income.
Well, I read an article a little while back where Billy Guerin was giving advice to the NBA players, and he was telling them that what the NHL did when they gave up the season. He said, don't make the same mistake that we made. Ultimately the NHL is a better place, but the players really lost. Really lost out on it because they lost a number of different benefits, and they lost an entire season of pay, and some guys that makes or breaks your career. I mean if they're taking a year off, they're not the same people. Younger guys come up and they take guys' jobs. I mean, I think they're really what is it, killing the goose that's laying the golden egg by even letting themselves get to the point where they just come to an agreement. The owners own the league, and the players play. They're like the equipment. They need to accept that and move forward.
You guys,
I agree with you there. And like I said, I've been a strong union man my whole life. But when unions become too strong, just like a business becomes too strong, then you have inequalities that come out of the system. Now, when you have 57% of the revenue going to the players, like their original contract is, I've stated that's too much. I thought a 50-50 deal is fair. If somebody wanted 51-49, I think you could compromise on it. When you have these big egos again and these multi-millionaires, remember, this is all, they live and they spend the money. I understand that. But they're in a whole nother league of their own, actually, with money. And that's the problem. It's a different league because they have the money and these other guys don't. They are going to kill the golden goose.
Well, I got to strongly disagree with that. For one, the players don't want 57%. That's what they already were getting, 57%, which the owners was giving it to them. And you guys cannot think that these owners in the NBA aren't filthy wealthy. Listen, when the Dream Team played basketball in the Olympics, the basketball opened up outside of the United States. Basketball's all over the world now. They're selling NBA jerseys all over the world. That's why we're getting a lot of European and players and great players from all over the world. The owners are making money hand over foot, and they don't want to share it with the players. I think the worst commissioner in all of sports is the commissioner of basketball. I think what Stern. I think what he's doing is very wrong, and I think that he's playing hardball, and it's not fair. Basketball has gone from a whole new level thanks to the Dream Team worldwide.
But my thing is okay. The owners are making money hand over fist, and we all understand that, okay. But the players aren't walking around pinching pennies. They're getting paid buckets full of cash, too. I mean, how much is enough? You know, I mean,
57%.
they make more money in a week than I'll make in a number of years.
In a career.
And they make more money in a year than I'll make in my lifetime. Because they have such an extravagant lifestyle, they need more and more. But if they were frugal, you could play 1 year and live 1,000 lifetimes. Never run out of
That's
money.
like being a rock star. That's what they got, this rock star mentality with what happened here. And that deal was a compromise, the last time, where they agreed on 57%. They wanted more. So I've been in negotiations. This is where it ends up. It's a compromise between both parties.
You want to give them 49%.
Well, no, I said 50-50 would be fine, because this is an entertainment industry. I mean, that's what it become. Like you said, they're marketing all this stuff. They change the jerseys. They change the colors. They change the cities. And Stern is one of the worst commissioners in history. He'll go down that way.
Without question.
He is causing this trouble. They could have reached a compromise. Whether it would have been somewhere between 50 and 57, the players even offered something like that I recall. So, I mean, cooler heads could have prevailed.
Well, I'll tell you, it's easy to say, yeah, the owners are filthy rich, the players are filthy rich. One of the things you have to understand, though, is that the players are going to make what they're going to make, and the owners are taking a risk. If something happens and the arena's closed that night, whatever, there's a leak in the roof or whatever, if something happens and people don't come to that game, the owners lose money. The players never lose money. They have their contract, they're going to get paid that. As long, but in a lockout they're going to lose money. But if there's a game and they are there, whether they play or not, they're getting paid. If you get hurt and you don't play, or if you get arrested and you don't play, or whatever, you still make that money. The owners take some risks, so I think that the owners should probably be on the upper side of the percentage of what's made. And remember, these guys they're playing a game. Right? It might be professional, but they're playing a game. The owners are the ones that have to market it. The owners are the ones that have to buy the new arenas or whatever. The owners take the risk that's involved with that. Now, as far as the union goes, first off, remember the immortal words of Patrick Ewing. We might make a lot of money, but we spend a lot of money too. I'm not sure that really matters, Pat, but I understand. But unions, they're good in a certain situation. For example, if you go down to the mills tomorrow and ask all those steel workers down there if they like the unions, and what they've done for. Oh wait, there aren't any steel workers anymore, are there? That's what a union will do for you.
Well, only owners in professional sports that take a risk are the owners in the NHL and hockey, because they don't have a TV contract. Football, those owners get $32 million before the season even starts. Basketball's the same way. Whether they have any home games or not, they're sitting on millions and millions of dollars because of the TV package. So the only true ownership that takes risks are in the NHL. NBA, the owners have no risk.
Well, they also do another thing. They have different insurance that covers when, say, a catastrophe happens. They actually get money because they didn't have the game. And when there's a work stoppage, a lot of companies have insurance so they can make their same amount of money. They don't usually bring this up. Now remember, a lot of these NBA owners are very wealthy from other businesses. So this isn't their main business. But they do protect their money with insurance in other ways. So that's just a little tip that you can research out there.
Mark Cuban tell you that?
No. No, he didn't, but he is a very smart and a good owner, and he's not afraid to pay the price to do business.
He was a billionaire before he bought the Mavericks.
Well, that's the point, but the idea is to stay a billionaire. There's an old joke. When I was in the horse business, there was a guy that had a very nice horse, Dragon's Lair, and they said, I forget Jeff's last name right now, but they said his dad is a millionaire. And they go, oh, that's great. And they go, no, he used to be worth $5 million because he got in the horse business, spent all that money.
Wow.
And that's what happens when these guys get into the business. They don't maintain their money. So
I like for him to open up the books like he owns. But
well, exactly. I agree with you. Jim, we're on that page.
To get back to what Magic Mike says, it's only a game, so we have to talk about the WPIAL football. And I've been predicting this, the championships is 2 weeks away. Clareton is one of the more overrated teams that I've seen in a long time. They're getting ready to break almost every state record for consecutive games. But I'm predicting in Class A that Stowe Rock's Vikings will defeat Clairton handily, and it'll be the biggest upset in the state this year.
Are you going to see the game live?
I'll be there at Heinz Field, sitting in between.
Drop some names. Come on.
Pete Annamarino and the legendary Bradley coach was this Chuck Clausing. That's where I always sit in the press box between the two legends and try to learn something. But in Double A, I'm predicting that Jeanette will upset Aliquippa. In Triple A, it's a no-brainer. Central Valley, who combined two schools last year. They won it all last year. They're undefeated again this year. They got the best player in the state who's still playing ball since Russell Shell's out, and that's Robert Foster, who's a junior, true superstar. And then Quad A, that's still up for grabs, but I wouldn't be surprised as Upper St. Clair upsets Central this week.
Interesting.
Those are some great picks, buddy. I wish I knew more about it and followed it. Although I did have somebody text me, and a guy texted me, sitting right next to me, about Russell Shell passing 9,000 yards. And then, by chance, I'm watching a game, and they said they're going to have the Hopewell game right after that. So I got to see the game.
Wow.
And see his touchdowns and his yardage. So thanks for the text.
You're welcome.
I do appreciate
It
that.
may win 2 national championships with Russell Shell.
Yeah, you gotta give credit where it's due. Nobody
Todd
knows
Graham
more.
is the coach?
Nobody knows more about high school football than smoking
They
Jim
bring
Frazier.
Johnny
And that's a
Majors
fact.
back.
Let me ask you something, Jim. What you skipped? What about the City League?
Well, the City League, I'm doing a game for TV on Saturday, and the City League's a little different this year. Alderdice is playing, and they're playing United Prep Obama, whatever the new name of that new school is. But they have the top player in the state, linebacker, Jalen Coleman, who's also a great running back, that spent 2 months at Gateway before his address got.
Did he get recruited?
We couldn't get him an address.
He played until somebody asked him, "Where do you live?"
He answered the wrong question.
I'm glad we covered these subjects over the last few weeks.
I think United Prep will win the City League in their inaugural season this year. They'll beat Alderdice, and Alderdice has a great player who's being recruited by Pitt, and his sister works with you, Magic Mike. Janae Barlow, her brother Jay Barlow, is being recruited by a lot of schools, including Pitt.
That's a great insight that you have there. When are you going to be? What station is this on so we can listen to you?
Yeah,
I'd like to hear you live.
I won't name the station, but we will be there Saturday, 1 o'clock. They used to play the City League championship games at Heinz Field. We used to do it with the cable station, but for some reason Heinz Field can get every game in the WPIL, every college game in, but for some reason it just can't.
They couldn't fit the city.
Yeah, them teams got to come too far, 2 or 3 blocks. They can't seem to accommodate it, even on a Thursday or Friday. And
where is this game going to be then?
So this game will be at South Stadium. And
Every once
George
in a while.
Couples,
Yeah,
George Couples Stadium.
That's it.
My dad was friends with him.
Oh, get out!
Yeah.
Wow.
He used to call my house, and I answered the phone because he'd say, "Can you get your dad?" And I'd go, "For what?" It was for the championship games with Fifth and Shenley.
Oh my goodness! They said them was some legendary games.
And I was at a couple of them.
What?
We'll save that for another show.
What? Was
Definitely.
you handing out turkeys in the heel like the Penguins?
I wasn't handing out turkeys, but it's an interesting story. Maybe I'll tell you that off air, but it's a classic
Yeah,
story.
Jim, every once in a while, there's a little bit of extracurricular activity after the City League championship game, and maybe Heinz Field doesn't feel like they have the room to accommodate that.
Well, I tell you what, a true story. 3 years ago, we do a game at Couple Stadium, and it's Oliver versus Shenley. And it went into overtime, and Oliver lost a heartbreaking game they never should have lost. Shenley won, and believe me, the K9 Dogs was out.
I can tell my story. I'll tell my story since you're leading into it. This This is a classic story.
You were there, right, man?
My dad would have these City League championship games, and it's about 1968. Okay, and there was something called riots and things going on at that time.
Dr. Martin Luther King.
Right, exactly. And what they did is it was an afternoon game.
You know more about black people than black folk.
I was born at 105 Pride Street in the Hill District. All right. And my story is, I'll set it up, and we'll try to finish this before the show's over. That my dad got the call from George Couples, which that's where the tie-in is here, and he had the championship game. We're there. I'm the only white kid there at the game. And they had limited amount of fans there because of all the fights and riots at the time.
Wow.
But this was 5th and Shenley.
Wow.
So it's a nip and tuck game the whole time. I don't remember who won the game because my dad, who I love dearly, goes to me, goes, Alan, not everybody loves the zebra shirt like I have. He pulls his zebra shirt off, and he goes, he has a T-shirt on. He goes, we're going to have to run underneath the stands to get out of here. And I'm like 11 or 12 years old, and I go, Dad, what do you mean by that? He goes, just follow me. And his other friend, the referee, goes, yeah, come on. We run underneath the stands, and I happen to look outside the windows, and there's people beating up cars, riding, police are out there, and it was what an experience. And we got out of there safe, because I'm here today, but it was a great experience, and I did see many City League games under a little better circumstance, of course, and we saw some great players, and we hope to get a guest named B.B. Flannery, so if he watches this on YouTube, he might be able to tell us some stories about my dad in those days, too.
Wow.
So that'd be a nice show to have.
That was what year? 68? Jim and I hooked up, I don't know, a few years ago. There's two things I can tell you about the City League. I really never saw a City League game until I started working with Jim. First, every game's like that. Every game is like that. And the other thing is, I have never, in whatever, 6, 7 years of doing this, going to the City League, I've never seen a City League team try to kick a field goal or an extra point, ever. I've never, ever seen anything like that. And the game that you were talking about was Oliver would have won that game if they had a field goal kicker.
That's true. And you know that it's rough treading in the City League when all the games are played at a neutral site. All the games are played at a couple of stadiums. There's no games at the home site. So,
but I'll tell you also, since we did cover a lot of City League, we saw a lot of really good athletes. There were a lot of kids that have played in the City League that would probably have been a lot better if they had played in the WPIL. And actually, the only reason for that is that the City League schools don't have the facilities that the WPIL schools have. A lot of these kids, and not only that, but they don't get the coverage. So kids that were very good football players never got the coverage. People never saw them play, so they didn't get the opportunities to go to Pitt or some of the other schools. And it's a shame because, I mean, especially Pitt should be down there taking a look at these kids. There are a lot of very good athletes there. And it's great that kids like Jawan Blair, every once in a while another kid now and then will come out of there, but it doesn't happen very often. And they usually end up going to like junior colleges or such, and then you just never hear from them again. But we've seen a lot of really good athletes that should have gotten a better opportunity.
I agree.
There's no doubt about it. And it's a shame because of all the tax dollars and all the things that go into the schools. I mean, that's what the amazing thing is, why they don't promote this and help those kids out. They deserve all the same things that the kids out in the suburbs do. But they are treated second class. I've always noticed that for years, just with my experience in the basketball end. And I have seen a couple football games, and it's just a shame. There are great athletes there.
And now I guess all our tax dollars will go to the civil suits at Penn State.
Yeah, that's going to be, that's probably going to get pretty expensive.
I don't know if we have enough time to go over all of that, Jim. You saved that bombshell at the end. No, it's just a shame that those things happen, and we'll have to see as this story uncovers, with more details and everything else, because it's all he said, she said type of stuff right now, and some of the grand jury reports are so graphic and unbelievable. I've seen some of them, and it's just a terrible thing to have happen to a university that prided itself on doing the right thing.
And as the show's winding down a little bit, should we make a prediction on how far the Steelers are going, or maybe what the record will be? Maybe adjust our records a little bit.
I'm going to stick with my 11-5, and I still see them playing Green Bay like last year in one of the few rematches in football for a Super Bowl. So I think they'll both be there.
I think the Steelers have as good a chance as anybody does in the AFC. I still have a feeling that the Steelers are going to win the AFC North. And 11-5 doesn't sound too far out of the realm of possibility.
Yeah, I said before the season 12-4. I'm sticking with that. They got Cleveland Browns twice, Cincinnati Bengals once, Kansas City Chiefs. And the only game they'll probably be an underdog is San Francisco 49ers. So Pittsburgh 12-4. And
Super Bowl too?
Well, I
What do you think?
know that Aaron Rodgers and Jordy Nelson can't wait to see William Gay again.
I got to agree with Jim. I'm going to go with 12-4 too. And I think that they have no opportunity to get to the Super Bowl. I don't think they have a chance of getting through the playoffs. But, you know, that's just me. I'm not a big Steeler fan. Everybody knows that.
Who do you think trips them up in the AFC?
I think Houston can still beat them. I don't think that they can beat.
Not anymore.
You know, obviously they can't beat Baltimore. Baltimore owns them. They can't beat anybody else, but they can beat the Steelers.
When a game counts, they can beat.
And I don't think there's any way they can beat New England again. And I don't think they want to play the Jets.
Again.
So, I mean, any team with a good passing game can beat them. So that and they haven't been able to stop the run all that greatly either. I still think Houston can get all the way to the Super Bowl. I don't know. Nobody can win it from the
With
AFC.
Matt Leinart as a quarterback?
Yeah, they still got a great running game, and they got a very, very good defense.
Well, don't forget now. Don't count him out. He's only a phone call away. Brett Favre would love to come to Houston.
He might be officially done. That might be too much for him. Hey, before we go, if anybody's listening to the Penguin game, text us and tell us what the Penguins are doing.
Before you move on, though, Jim has a good point. Brett Favre did not go to training camp this year, and that's how he starts out all his great seasons.
Great point, Mike. That's a great point. I was just trying to talk on your favorite sport, Mike. Penguins, before we end this here.
Yep,
You know,
Penguins
Sid
have the
Crosby
Colorado
did-
Avalanche tonight. They started about half an hour ago,
Right.
and yeah, they're rolling. I'm sorry you stepped
And the
on you
question
there,
everybody wants to know
Sydney?
is, when is Sid coming back? They said,
That's
maybe
why I brought
Friday,
this up.
you know?
I have never in my life badmouthed the Penguins, especially in public. When we get off the air, I'll give you my opinion on what's going on with that.
Okay. Be interested to hear.
But anyway, thanks for tuning in. It's been a great show. You guys have anything you want to close off with? This is the time. If not, please tune in next week. We're going to have Marty Galosi from Robert Morris College. I think he'll be a great guest to have. We've got a lot of good things coming from Robert Morris. Guys?
And Pitt ain't out of it. High Octane is not out of it. They can still win the Big East and go to a BCS Bowl.
It'll be run and gun. It'll be run and gun. It'll be run and gun with Pitt. That's what we'll have. He already admitted. Coach Graham admitted that he had to change it. They were going too fast.
Give Alabama a run for their money.
I don't think anybody's out of the running in the Big East yet.
And then, as a side note, what happened to Boise State? Didn't they lose?
They did take a loss. I still think they're the best team in the country.
Right. Well, we're going to have to close this down. We had a little side talk here for a while, and I want to thank everybody again for watching our show. And remember, we have an email address, pittsburghsportsline@gmail.com, and we're trying to get a phone hookup so some of you can call in and join in on the conversation. Thanks for your time.